Welcome to Hidden Justice, where justice stories reveal the raw truth of courage and resilience against prejudice. Our tale begins at St. Mary's General Hospital, a place praised as a symbol of medical excellence. Yet, beneath its pristine white walls lies a current of judgment that few dare to confront. Angela Parker, a skilled and determined black nurse, arrived at these doors unaware of the storm awaiting her. The scent of disinfectant filled the air, and the polished floors reflected the bright lights above, but something darker hung in the silence. Conversations stopped as she walked by, and eyes followed her with the quiet weight of unspoken bias. Despite the knot of nerves in her stomach, Angela stood tall, reminding herself of the battles she had already fought to get here, long nights of study, endless shifts, and the constant need to prove herself. This was more than a job, it was her calling. Little did Angela know, her first day at St. Mary's would ignite a chain of events that would challenge the entire institution. Angela's footsteps echoed like soft thunder as she approached the nurses' station, hoping for a warm welcome. Instead, she was met with a sudden hush, as if her very presence disrupted their rhythm. She drew in a steady breath and said confidently, "I'm Angela Parker, the new nurse. Could you direct me to the head nurse's office?" The blonde nurse at the desk glanced up, her smile practiced but her tone cool. "Third door on the right," she replied curtly. Angela nodded and walked down the corridor, feeling each step magnified under the weight of unseen eyes. Memories of her mother's voice rushed through her mind. "You'll always have to work twice as hard, baby girl, but never let them see you doubt yourself." Angela's heart swelled with determination. She had faced doubters before and had silenced them with skill and strength. Today would be no different. She wasn't just stepping into a hospital. She was stepping into a battlefield where her courage would be tested like never before. Before reaching the office, Angela crossed paths with a tall, distinguished doctor with sharp gray eyes and a stern expression. His presence radiated authority. "Good morning, doctor," she said with a warm smile. "I'm Angela Parker, the new nurse starting today." His response was cutting and cold. "Dr. William Greaves," he replied curtly, "I hope you're prepared to meet our high standards. We do not tolerate mistakes here." Without giving her a chance to respond, he brushed past, leaving her standing there with her hand half lifted in greeting. The sting of his dismissal was sharp, but Angela refused to let it weaken her resolve. She squared her shoulders, knocked on the head nurse's door, and took a deep breath. Whatever prejudice or challenges awaited her inside St. Mary's, she would face them head on. She had not fought so hard to let anyone make her feel small. This was her moment to prove not only her worth, but also her unshakable strength. Angela started her rounds with quiet confidence, determined not to let her rocky introduction ruin the day. Her first patient was a frail, elderly man recovering from surgery, a routine check that Angela approached with gentle professionalism. She carefully adjusted his IV and checked his vitals, speaking softly to reassure him. Suddenly, the door burst open, and Dr. Greaves strode in, his eyes narrowing when he saw her. "Nurse Parker," he barked, "is this how we handle patient care here? Slow and uncertain." The patient looked startled, his gaze darting between them. Angela froze for a moment, her heart pounding. "Doctor, I was simply ensuring the IV line was secure." "Excuses," he cut her off sharply. "Do you want to be responsible for another careless mistake?" His words hung in the air like a slap. Angela's cheeks burned, but she forced herself to remain calm, knowing any reaction would only fuel his disdain. The patient's confused expression told her this wasn't just about her competence. This was personal. Angela straightened her back and continued her work, refusing to let Dr. Greaves see her flinch. The patient, Mr. Johnson, gave her a sympathetic glance, sensing the tension. "Doctor, I think she's doing fine," Mr. Johnson said quietly. But Greaves ignored him, stepping closer to Angela with a cold smirk. "We don't tolerate mediocrity here, especially from someone so new and untested," he said, his tone laced with unspoken prejudice. Angela bit her lip, holding back the anger rising in her chest. Every fiber of her being wanted to respond, but she remembered her mother's advice, "Never let them see you falter." She adjusted the patient's IV with precise movements, her professionalism unshaken. When she finished, she looked Greaves in the eye and said calmly, "The patient is stable." Is there anything else you require, doctor? For a split second, he looked taken aback by her composure. Then with a sneer, he muttered, "We'll see how long that attitude lasts," before storming out. Angela exhaled slowly once Dr. Greaves left the room, her hands trembling slightly. Mr. Johnson shook his head in disbelief. "You don't deserve that," he said softly. Angela managed a small smile, grateful for his kindness. "Thank you, sir. It's just part of the job sometimes," she replied, though inside her resolve was hardening. She stepped out into the corridor, only to overhear two nurses whispering near the station. "Did you see the way Dr. Greaves snapped at her?" one said, with a hint of amusement. "I'm surprised she hasn't quit already," the other added. Angela walked past them silently, their words cutting deep but also fueling her determination. If they thought she would break, they were wrong. She reminded herself why she had chosen this path, to help patients, no matter what obstacles stood in her way. As she prepared for the next rounds, Angela's mind was set. She would endure the humiliation if it meant proving her worth, and maybe, just maybe, she would. The next morning, Angela entered room 412 to check on a new patient, Mr. Thomas Edwards. He was a man in his late 50s, his arms bandaged and elevated from a skiing accident. His sharp gray eyes studied her as she walked in, not with suspicion but with quiet curiosity. "Good morning, Mr. Edwards," Angela said with a warm smile. "I'll be your nurse during your stay." He nodded slightly, his gaze lingering on her calm demeanor. Unlike other patients, there was no judgment in his eyes, only a hint of intrigue. As Angela checked his vitals, she noticed how he observed every detail, her careful movements, her tone of voice, even the way she maintained composure, despite the chaos outside the room. "You're not like the others here," he said softly. Angela blinked, unsure what he meant. "Just doing my job," she replied, but inside, she felt something different about him, something she couldn't quite define. As Angela prepared his medications, Mr. Edwards spoke again, his voice measured and deliberate. "You've been here, how long?" She glanced up, surprised by the directness of the question. "Just a few weeks, sir." He smiled faintly, "And already, you've endured more than most would in years." Angela hesitated, sensing a deeper meaning behind his words. "Hospitals can be challenging," she said carefully, not wanting to reveal too much. Mr. Edwards tilted his head slightly, as if he was weighing every word she spoke. "Challenging is one word for it," he murmured. Then, with a tone that almost felt like a test, he added, "But you don't strike me as someone who gives up." His words struck her like a spark of encouragement, a rare kindness in a place where she felt constantly judged. Later that day, Angela returned to find Mr. Edwards reading a thick folder of documents. She frowned. "Sir, you should be resting." He smiled knowingly. Resting doesn't mean ignoring what's broken. His words puzzled her, but before she could ask, Dr. Greaves walked in, his tone unnaturally cheerful. "Mr. Edwards, how are you? Nurse Parker treating you well?" Angela almost laughed at the hypocrisy, but kept silent. Mr. Edwards simply looked between them, his eyes narrowing slightly as if he were piecing together a puzzle. "Yes," he said, "she's been excellent. I trust her judgment." Angela felt a rush of gratitude for his support, though she didn't yet understand why his opinion seemed to carry such weight. As Greaves left, Mr. Edwards glanced at her with a quiet smile. "People reveal themselves when they think no one's watching," he said cryptically. Angela left the room with a lingering feeling that this patient was far from ordinary. The hospital corridors grew heavy with whispers as the days passed. Angela noticed the tension increasing whenever she interacted with Dr. Greaves. He was relentless, criticizing her smallest moves, often in front of other staff. One afternoon, while Angela was preparing IV fluids for Mr. Edwards, Greaves stormed in. "Nurse Parker, must I remind you of the proper protocols? Patients like Mr. Edwards deserve only the best, not sloppy work." His voice echoed through the room, dripping with condescension. Angela swallowed hard, but before she could answer, Mr. Edwards spoke calmly yet firmly. "Doctor, I see no problem with Nurse Parker's work. In fact, she's the only reason I feel truly cared for here." The room fell silent. Greaves's face stiffened, his pride bruised by the unexpected defense. Angela glanced at Mr. Edwards, silently thanking him, but his expression gave nothing away, except perhaps a spark of quiet authority that she didn't yet understand. That evening, Angela replayed the incident in her mind while sitting at the bus stop. Mr. Edwards' tone hadn't been just polite, it had been commanding, the kind of tone that came from someone accustomed to leading. She couldn't shake the feeling that this man wasn't an ordinary patient. Earlier, during her rounds, she'd overheard two nurses gossiping near the break room. "Have you noticed how Dr. Greaves changes his tone whenever he's around Mr. Edwards?" one whispered. "It's like he's scared of him, but why?" Angela pretended not to hear, but her curiosity grew stronger. She recalled how Mr. Edwards had studied the hospital environment, almost as if he were taking notes in his mind. Was he someone important, or was this just her imagination? The next day, Dr. Greaves attempted to humiliate Angela again in front of other staff members. "We can't afford mistakes, Parker. Perhaps you should reconsider if this job is right for you," he sneered, his words cutting deep. Before Angela could respond, Mr. Edwards, who had been wheeled down the hall for a therapy session, interjected sharply. "Dr. Greaves, is this how you speak to all of your staff, or just to the ones who actually care about their work?" Everyone in the hallway froze. Greaves stammered, clearly taken aback, while Angela stood speechless. For the first time, she saw fear flicker in the doctor's eyes. Mr. Edwards looked directly at Angela and nodded slightly, a silent gesture of support. It was becoming clear that this patient's presence was far more significant than anyone had realized. Angela's curiosity about Mr. Edwards intensified. During a quiet moment while adjusting his IV, she asked gently, "Mr. Edwards, if you don't mind me asking, what do you do outside of skiing?" His lips curved into a faint, knowing smile. "Let's just say I've spent most of my life ensuring hospitals like this one thrive, or fail, based on how they treat their staff and patients." Angela paused, sensing the weight behind his words. "Are you someone from the medical board?" she asked cautiously. "Close," he replied cryptically. "But my reach extends further than a single board." Before she could probe further, a nurse entered, delivering documents that required immediate attention, breaking their moment. Yet the intensity in Mr. Edwards' eyes left Angela unsettled. He wasn't just speaking about influence, he was hinting at power, real, institutional power. That evening, while Angela retrieved supplies from the records office, she overheard two administrators whispering urgently. "Do you know who that man in room 412 is?" one asked. "He's Thomas Edwards, the CEO of United Health Systems. If he's unhappy, this hospital could lose funding, partnerships, everything." Angela froze, her heart racing. Suddenly, the puzzle pieces fit together. The commanding tone, the sharp gaze, the way even Dr. Greaves seemed uneasy around him. She realized that Mr. Edwards had been observing everything, not as a patient, but as someone capable of reshaping the hospital's future. The knowledge filled Angela with both hope and fear. Hope that her struggles might finally be acknowledged, and fear of what kind of storm was brewing behind the scenes. The next day, Mr. Edwards confirmed her unspoken thoughts. "I know what you've been enduring, Nurse Parker," he said calmly while she checked his blood pressure. "I've seen the prejudice, the disrespect, and the lack of accountability. This hospital prides itself on excellence, but it's rotting from the inside. I intend to change that." Angela felt her throat tighten. "Change? But how?" she asked. Mr. Edwards' gaze sharpened. "By making sure voices like yours are not silenced. Dr. Greaves will soon learn that the real measure of power is not arrogance, but integrity." His words sent a shiver down her spine. It was clear now. He wasn't merely defending her. He was preparing for something bigger, something that could shake the hospital to its core. The hospital buzzed with tension as news of an urgent high-profile surgery spread. Angela was stunned when Dr. Greaves ordered her to assist. "Try not to embarrass us today, Nurse Parker," he said with a smirk. Determined not to be intimidated, Angela meticulously prepared, double-checking every instrument. In the operating room, the atmosphere was thick with pressure. Board members and senior doctors watched from the observation deck. Angela's hands moved with confidence, anticipating the surgeon's needs before he spoke. Then she noticed something alarming. Dr. Greaves' hand trembled slightly as he prepared to make a crucial incision. Angela's training screamed that his approach could cause catastrophic harm. Her heart pounded. Should she speak up? risking his wrath and possibly her job, or stay silent and watch the patient's life hang in the balance. The decision weighed heavily, but she knew what she had to do. "Doctor, wait." Angela's voice was firm but respectful. "The anatomy suggests another angle for the incision. It will reduce bleeding risks." A hush fell over the operating room. All eyes turned to her, shock etched on their faces. Dr. Greaves froze, his expression a mix of anger and disbelief. For a moment it seemed he would dismiss her outright. But then, with a tight jaw and clear irritation, he adjusted his cut, following her advice. Moments later, the patient's vitals stabilized. A wave of relief washed over the team, but Dr. Greaves's glare burned into Angela as if her competence was an insult. He muttered coldly, "See me after this procedure." Angela swallowed hard, knowing the storm that awaited her. Yet, deep down, she felt a glimmer of pride. She had saved a life, regardless of who tried to discredit her. After the operation, Dr. Greaves pulled Angela into a private room, his voice dripping with rage. "How dare you question me in front of everyone? You think one lucky guess makes you a hero?" His tone turned venomous, laced with a cruel insult about her background and qualifications. Angela's breath hitched, but she stood firm. Before she could respond, a calm yet commanding voice cut through the tension. "That's enough, doctor." Both turned to see Mr. Edwards, sitting upright on his hospital bed, watching them with a piercing gaze. The air shifted instantly. "Your behavior toward Nurse Parker has been appalling, and I've seen enough," Edwards said, his voice low but powerful. Dr. Greaves faltered, visibly shaken. It was clear now that this patient was not an ordinary man, and his presence carried a weight no one in the hospital could ignore. Angela froze, stunned by Mr. Edwards' sudden intervention. His calm, yet commanding tone silenced even the arrogant Dr. Greaves. Who are you?" Dr. Greaves stammered, visibly rattled. Edwards straightened, his eyes sharp. "I'm Thomas Edwards, CEO of Healthcare United, one of the largest hospital networks in the country." His words landed like a thunderclap. Angela's jaw dropped. She had been caring for one of the most powerful men in the medical industry without knowing it. Dr. Greaves, usually so smug, turned pale. Edwards' voice hardened. "I've spent my career ensuring hospitals meet the highest standards of care and respect. What I've witnessed here, especially your treatment of this nurse, is disgraceful." The tension in the room thickened. Angela could hardly believe what she was hearing. All the whispered insults, the dismissive looks. Someone with authority had seen everything, and now it would finally matter. Dr. Greaves attempted to recover his composure. "Mr. Edwards, there must be a misunderstanding." "No," Edwards interrupted sharply, his voice unwavering. "I've seen enough to understand the culture here. A nurse like Angela Parker should be celebrated for her skill and courage, not humiliated." Angela's heart pounded. For weeks, she had endured subtle cruelty, knowing there was little she could do. Now, the tables were turning. "You've been more concerned with your ego than patient safety," Edwards continued, locking eyes with Greaves. "If she hadn't spoken up in that operating room, we might be dealing with a tragedy right now." The words cut like a blade, leaving Dr. Greaves speechless. Angela felt a wave of vindication wash over her. But Edwards wasn't done. "I'll be speaking with the board about what I've witnessed. There will be consequences." Word of the confrontation spread like wildfire. By the end of the day, whispers rippled through every hallway. Who was this patient that made the head doctor look so shaken? When staff learned he was the CEO of Healthcare United, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. Suddenly, Angela found herself approached by nurses who had previously ignored or dismissed her. Some offered nervous smiles, others murmured apologies. Angela remained composed, but inside, a sense of validation grew. Later that evening, Mr. Edwards called her into his room. "You've shown extraordinary professionalism under pressure," he said warmly. "I want to hear everything, every instance of unfair treatment you've endured." Angela hesitated, then opened up, recounting the weeks of subtle hostility, the heavier workloads, and the racial slurs from patients like Mr. Johnson. Edwards listened intently, his expression darkening with every word. "This will not continue," he promised. "Tomorrow we start fixing this." The next morning, St. Mary's General Hospital felt like a different place. News of Thomas Edwards' identity had spread far beyond its walls, reaching local news outlets and medical boards. In a hastily arranged meeting, Edwards addressed the hospital administration. "Your culture must change starting today," he declared. "We cannot heal patients while ignoring injustice within these walls." His words carried the weight of someone who could make or break careers. Angela stood at the back of the room, her heart pounding as she watched the faces of staff members shift from denial to realization. For the first time, her story wasn't just hers. It was a spark igniting overdue change. Dr. Greaves sat silently, stripped of his arrogance, knowing his actions were under intense scrutiny. Meanwhile, Angela felt a deep surge of pride. She hadn't just survived the storm. She had become the reason for transformation. Mr. Edwards looked at her and nodded, as if to say, "This is your moment." Within hours, the hospital's atmosphere shifted. Mandatory diversity and inclusion training was announced, and every department head was tasked with creating an actionable plan for fair treatment of all staff. Angela, once isolated and silenced, was invited to join the hospital's new Ethics and Equity Committee. It was surreal for her, knowing how far she had come since her first day of humiliation. "Your perseverance has been remarkable," Edwards told her privately. "People like you are why I fight for justice in healthcare." His sincerity brought tears to her eyes. For the first time, she felt seen not just as a nurse, but as a leader. Meanwhile, whispers of support replaced the cold stares she had grown used to. Colleagues who once ignored her now approached her with respect, seeking guidance on how to create a better workplace. Angela understood that this moment wasn't just a personal victory. It was the beginning of something bigger than herself. A movement had started. Weeks later, the changes were visible everywhere. Posters promoting respect and collaboration lined the hallways. Staff meetings now included discussions on fairness, empathy, and teamwork. Dr. Greaves was suspended pending a full investigation, a powerful reminder that no one was above accountability. Angela, though humbled, knew the fight for justice was ongoing. "This isn't the end," Edwards reminded her. "It's the beginning of a hospital that truly values its people." Angela smiled, feeling both proud and determined. As she left the hospital one evening, she reflected on the journey, from enduring discrimination to helping lead a cultural shift. The pain she endured had not been wasted. It had built a story of resilience that could inspire countless others. Standing at the bus stop where she once cried in frustration, Angela now felt hope. Her story with hidden justice was only the start, and the world needed more voices like hers. If you loved this justice story, subscribe to Hidden Justice and share it today.